Welcome back to the Overthinking Podcast. Today, we're diving into some game-changing concepts that will help your training feel more intuitive, more flexible, and way less math-heavy. Because let's be real, you're not a robot and you don't have a million hours to spend in the gym. Forget the rigid numbers because today we're talking about auto-regulation, or basically vibes rather than math.
Have you ever thought about skipping the gym because you're tired? Or worse, you actually skipped the gym because you were tired? What if there was a way to accommodate how you're showing up for your day and still getting your shit done?
So that's why we're breaking down what auto-regulation actually is, how it works, and why it just might be the secret you're missing to training smarter. But whether you're feeling sluggish or strong, auto-regulation is here to help you adjust, adapt, and still crush your goals. So let's ditch the math and trust the vibes.
Plus, this is also a great follow-up to last week's Progressive Overload episode. So if you missed that, go back and check that out, episode 9. But first,
we've got our favorite little game called
This or That.
I think I always take the higher note. I mean, that's all right.
It's for the best.
It's for the best. So today, Kelsey, what is our this or that?
Today's this or that is going to be, are you a TV show person or a movie person?
I am super non-committal at baseline as a human being. But when I watch a show, I feel like if I watch the first episode, I'm committed. I need to know what happens.
Yeah.
Even if I have to fast forward through the episodes. But I love TV shows because I think there's more room for character development and watching characters go through obstacles and, handle different things. So I think TV shows just give my ADD brain a little bit more to work with.
I agree that it feels like the non-committal part of me wants a show, but it's funny because it feels like more of a commitment. It is more of a commitment, where a movie might be 2 hours, 3 hours if the movie director is pretentious, but 2 hours versus a TV show where each episode is 45 minutes and you have 10 episodes, that's way longer than 2 hours. You're already in a bigger commitment. But I feel like because it's piecemealed that I like it better. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
That way I can stop and start anytime, right?
Yeah.
I feel like in a movie, however, say you're done with your workday and you're like, okay, I'm going to watch an hour or two of TV before bed. The only time a movie is probably better is when I'm watching a show that I really like and I'm like, come on, one more episode, one more episode. And all of a sudden it's 4 a.m. and you're like, how the fuck did I get here?
Yep. Like clockwork, I can fall asleep in a movie. No questions. Yeah.
But a show, no?
Show, I'm invested. To what you're talking about. I want to see the next one and the next one and the next one.
I actually feel like White Lotus brought back the whole wait every week for the new episode. I actually don't think that's an optimal way to do it. I feel like I lose my gusto, my excitement for the show because I'm just waiting. I'm like, I don't even know what the fuck happened.
Well, that's another this or that. Would you rather have them all or single dose? Because I actually prefer a single dose because it gives me something to look forward to. And I don't know, it takes my brain off the state of the world for a little bit. Yeah. It gives me something, if I look forward to Thursdays on Severance Day, which is no longer airing, but it gives me something to look forward to throughout the week.
Yeah, I just feel like once I watch the big heavy hitter White Lotus episode and I'm all revved up, I'm like, what the fuck's gonna happen?
Yes.
And then I'm like,
you need answers now.
Okay. And then I start the next episode the next week and I'm like, I'm not as connected, to the characters.
I agree.
Anyway,
we digress.
So, Kelsey, what is auto-regulation?
So I've been dying to talk about this topic, and I know that I messaged you a lot throughout the week saying, I really want to talk about this. I want to talk about this. So I've been really stoked to bring this to the podcast, and it ties so perfectly to last week's episode because it really ties into making a good program and not following a rigid program that often leaves you feeling depleted or overtrained or frustrated. So auto-regulation is basically a way to moderate intensity of your exercises. So it's going to be a scale of 1 to 10. 1 is obviously inconsequential, probably body weight, not that hard. 10 is going to be the max effort. So you couldn't possibly do one more rep if your life depended on it. So it's a scale of 1 to 10. So we use this scale to adjust our intensity of any given exercise to accommodate any fluctuations in how you're showing up or your readiness for your workout. Like we talked about in the intro, sometimes you might be tired. Sometimes you might be on your period. You never really know. So autoregulation is that scale that we're going to, and we'll teach you how to use it, schedule your training to accommodate not only your strength gains and your output, but also what you're putting into the gym.
And I think RPE is such a massive tool because when we are on this journey of trying to change our body composition or how our body feels in some way, a lot of us just get stuck and don't actually attune to how our body's feeling on a day-to-day. You know, we attune more to how we mentally feel, like, oh, I feel sluggish, or oh, I feel angry or tired or happy. But like, how does your physical body feel? And I think that RPE is a great tool for that. And the inverse of RPE is reps in reserve. So like Kelsey was saying, if you're looking for an RPE 9, your RIR, or reps in reserve, is like 1 rep left. And it's not a perfect system. It definitely takes time to learn, but it's a very easy way to annotate your effort in a set for certain reps. And I think that when we actually take the time to record our results and say how each set felt, like the vibe of your set, like, okay, that was hard, but like I probably could have done another rep if like someone was screaming over me.
Yeah.
Or I probably could have done another 2 reps if, you know, I adjusted my position a little bit.
Yeah. I always start this process like as soon as someone starts working with me. Obviously, I'm not presenting this mass of information, but I'm asking the questions. Okay, you just did your set of 5 barbell back squats. How many more reps do you think you could have done? If they say 3, we'd consider that a 7. If they said that was the easiest weight I've ever done, cool, let's just slap another 20 pounds in there.
That's a warm-up set.
Yeah, it's a warm-up set. Let's slap another pounds in there until we get to that, what feels like a 7 or 8. And, you know, integrating this into your program, if you're in the general population and you're writing your own programs or you're coming up with the exercises you want to do, it takes a little time to learn this. But once you kind of understand the broad concept, it gets a little bit easier. So let's break down from, you know, we'll go from 5 to 10, what each of those might feel like. So we just said a 5 might feel like a warm-up set. 6 is going to be a little bit heavier. 7 might be something that's comfortably annoying, challenging, but doable, but you're starting to feel the urge to grunt, like you said.
Yes. And so we want to kind of look at is 9.5 and 10 are kind of like your maximal effort sets. Like we don't dip into those waters too often, right? We save those for testing week, for assessment week, you know, maybe the last week or 2 of your cycle. Maybe it's 1 or 2 sets of your whole session. But we really do reserve those top end efforts for, you know, more testing times.
Right.
But,
and we do that because we know, you and I know, because we're experienced, that the top end sets is not where gains are made. Gains are expressed at the top end. So if you want to know your true max, say it's a 5 or 3 or 1, you're going to give a 10, but we're not training at a 10 because that's going to lead to things like fatigue, overtraining, frustration. Mm-hmm. If you're constantly failing in your sets week to week to week, you need to reevaluate what you're doing.
Right. But however, risking failure and the willingness and the buy-in to seek failure, that is the vibe that we're looking for in training. So our working sets for the vast majority of your training is going to be anywhere between a 7 and a 9 RPE. So anywhere between 1 to 3 reps left in the tank before absolute failure. And one thing I want to point out here is that there's a difference between absolute failure and form failure. And one thing that I always teach my clients is that, especially in the first couple of weeks, like they're probably not as adapted to knowing what a true 10 feels like.
Totally.
Right? An 8 feels like a 10 to them right now because they've never expressed a true 10.
Right.
So I do like to specify with my clients, and especially clients that have been training for like a year or 2 years, it's like giving them the clear guidance of, is this 3 reps short of absolute failure, or is this 3 reps short of form failure? Because form failure can mean you're starting to let compensation patterns pop up. You're opening the door up a little bit maybe for injury.
Yeah. So you think of a deadlift, it might be where your back starts to round.
Right. Or where you're just like not able to grip the handle as much, right? So I do want anyone listening to this, like if you're a very trained athlete and you know what your true to failure is, use the RPE scale based on your absolute strength. If you're someone who's been lifting for a couple years, you're kind of still learning, you're getting like your feet under you, but you feel like decently trained, I would like you to take this RPE set to your form failure, or maybe like a little above, right? Like if you do an RPE 9 and you have 1 rep in the tank before form failure, then say you're doing push-ups, it's that 1 rep before you kind of do that like little snaky thing.
Where you like start to get a little crooked.
Yeah, you start to like lose your core tension a little bit.
Yeah.
You're kind of, one arm's stronger than the other, you're kind of like wiggling out.
To your point also, like I think individual exercises are going to be different, right? Like if you're on the leg press, you're probably going to be able to like try harder for a little longer than say a back squat or a deadlift. Like you'll probably know your true max of a deadlift because it's not going to come off the ground.
Exactly.
Whereas like a leg press, you can probably still get a few more.
And you can, that's a great point, because there are certain movements you can really fight through, and whether it's on a machine or not. And there's some movements that like a strict press or a deadlift, it's like that bar just ain't moving.
Yeah, right.
However, with a push-up, I can kind of compensate my way out of a couple reps.
Yep.
So in those movements, if you're someone who feels more adapted and is more comfortable with certain movements, even if you're a newer trainee, maybe you do push close to true failure.
Yeah.
And this also speaks to movements that are a little bit more taxing, right? Like multi-joint movements, like a deadlift. Like that's going to be a lot more taxing for you to fight through those last couple reps than a couple ring rows. You know what I mean?
For sure.
A lot more joints, a lot more muscle tissues being used in a deadlift versus a ring row.
Right.
Anyway, so let's get back to it. I think it's great for all of us to just have these numbers in mind, because it's really easy to just put a ton of, and we'll get into this, but it's easier to put a ton of pressure on yourself to progressively overload only from, increasing your weight and increasing your number of reps. We're like, there's a lot more on the table here, especially when you are acknowledging the energy that you had coming into the session, the effort that you gave in each set, and how that, compares relative to your true maxes and your true, full effort sessions that you've done in the past.
Totally. So a breakdown of what an example looks like using RPE, or rate of perceived exertion. Rate of perceived exertion, if we haven't made this clear, is the auto-regulation tool. I don't know if we ever specifically said that, but I just want to make that clear.
And then the RIR, not to make things confusing, it's just a way to like show you the inverse.
You're on this journey, take notes.
Yes.
So imagine yourself, you're doing a squat day. You're supposed to do 3 sets of 5 reps at a certain weight, but on the day, as the day's going, maybe you're warming up and those warm-up weights are starting to feel a little sluggish. Maybe the weights you used from last week might be feeling a little different. That's where you look at the RPE that you have scheduled. So let's say week 1, it's 3x5 at an RPE 7. Week 2 is also a 7. What this week might feel like a 7 may be lower this week. Chances are it won't be like drastically higher than than last week, but chances are it might be the same, or it might be lower. Like maybe last week you were ovulating. Now this week you're about to start your period, or you're getting into that luteal phase. You might just feel a little more fatigued. That's okay. Use that RPE to adjust the way that you put your weights on.
Right. If you're walking into the gym with a 4 out of 10 energy, but you give all that 4, you give what you got.
You're still giving a 7.
You're still giving a 7.
Yeah. Because
right?
at the end of the day, what matters is that you showed up, you did it. You didn't nocebo yourself and say like, oh, I'm tired. It's going to be a shitty workout anyway. Maybe you're going to show up and you're going to be She-Hulk. You never know.
And you know what? That does happen to us more often than not.
100%.
Especially in the times when Kelsey and I trained together, one of us would be like, oh, I'm not feeling good. And the other one's like, I'm ready to go.
Yeah. But you feed off one another.
But it's training vibes. Your training vibes can bump up. And
totally.
Sometimes it's just a playlist. Sometimes it's putting on a workout outfit.
Maybe your gym crush is there.
Maybe your gym crush is there. You get a little extra dose of adrenaline.
There you go.
There's ways to work through this. And I think by giving you the toolkit of how to use these terms to kind of like give yourself a little bit of grace, but also put the effort forth when you do have it.
Yeah. You're basically just like using this as a tool to go with what your body can give that day instead of the pressure of constantly having the fixed loading patterns like a lot of like traditional weightlifting programs do, which leads us to a study that we came up with, or we found. We didn't come up with the study, but basically this meta-analysis compared auto-regulation methods compared to a traditional fixed loading approach. So if you think of something like that's prescribed at 70% and the next week is 72% and then 75%, that's what we mean by fixed loading approach. The findings indicated that auto-regulation was more effective in enhancing maximum strength, particularly in exercises like squats and bench press. So going back to the bigger compound movements, multi-joint movements that we talked about.
And the factors that did make auto-regulation more effective in this study are 4 things. 1, train harder, train smarter, not harder. So autoregulation adjusts your training intensity based on how you feel that day. So you push when you're ready and then dial back when you're under recovered. Number 2 is maximizing strength without overtraining. And this is such a common thing for people to know, like, am I training too much, not enough? But by responding to daily performance, you're making steady progress without burning out and accumulating unnecessary fatigue. So you're actually listening and attuning to your body based on how it's feeling that day. And you're not overtraining because, okay, if my effort's a little low, I'm just going to do more volume. It's like, nope, do what you're supposed to do and just do it at the effort level that you have that day.
Yeah. How much of your CrossFit years and your dieting years did you spend in that overtraining that you wish you could have used RPE?
Oh my God. That actually just created a visceral response. Like competing in CrossFit and being told to eat 1,600 calories a day when I was training 4 hours a day. Like when I was binge eating every single night. Yeah, I probably should have listened to that and just given myself a little bit more carbs around my training time. That would have saved a whole lot of stress, injury, just emotional warfare.
It just makes the whole process more frustrating.
Yeah. And by using techniques like this, you really can self-attune and really repair that relationship to yourself. You know, it's like we grow up and we're told to follow authority. And it's like when you hire a coach, they're your authority. But my body is my authority. I knew what it needed. I knew that I was doing some shit to my body and I really should have spoken up.
Yeah. It gives you some autonomy over the way that you're showing up.
And
the outputs you're putting in.
Over your own body.
Yeah.
And then you touched on this one too, but it's just more effective than fixed plans because no fixed linear progression is going to be able to, anticipate how you're going to feel on a day-to-day. So since your training adapts to real life factors like sleep and stress, you're more likely to feel stuck or discouraged on off days if you're following this fixed plan. So when you have control and you create control over your own training intensity, you're way more likely to stay engaged and you're way more likely to stay committed to your program. And then that way you actually have some things to talk about with your coach instead of just oh, yep, did my program the way it was supposed to, and didn't talk about why you felt like crap on your Tuesday leg day session. Because if you did bring that up with your coach, they'd probably tell you what we're telling you right now, auto-regulate, but then that also opens up the conversation for more conversation with your coach about why you're feeling this way. And that way we can get, more proactive the next time you're day 2 of your luteal phase and we just know that you feel like shit. Now you have power and you have knowledge and you have ability to take control of your own results, your own training, and honestly, probably the trajectory of your day. How many days are ruined from a bad training session?
Not many. Well, actually, in my case.
Yeah, if you go into the gym and you're like, I'm just frustrated and I feel like crap and you didn't auto-regulate, those days are the worst. Yeah. But when you leave the gym and you did auto-regulate and you did give yourself that grace and that love and that respect to say, I'm not feeling it today and I don't need to fit this round peg in a square hole. I can do my best and my best is going to be just enough. Yep. Because the next session that you show up to, you're going to have so much pride in the fact that I was here yesterday. Was it the best session ever? No, but now I'm here to hit it hard and I'm already still in the flow with my training time and how I want to feel.
Yeah. And we're going to say it till we're blue in the face. Consistency is the number one thing to reaching your goals, whether it's nutrition, whether it's in the gym, whether it's maintaining your sleep schedule, your sleep hygiene, managing your stress. Being consistent with everything matters so much more than the 1 or 2 times that you're going to fall off.
And I think we're not robots, but let's get clear, and everyone's different. What are the things that you can be robotic about, right? We can be robotic about certain. I want you all to be very robotic about doing your warm-up. There is so much benefit to doing the warm-up from a physiological perspective, but also from a psychological and nervous system perspective. There's an element of commitment there. There's an element of consistency.
And it's almost, you're influencing the discipline, more, how robotic we can be. But on the same note, we're not robots to what we're saying. Use the tools because you are human, but habituate certain things that help you be successful.
Yeah. And I would much rather my clients tell me that, okay, I only had 30 minutes, so I did the warm-up and I absolutely crushed it on my deadlifts. And then I left. Yeah. Then say, oh, I only had 30 minutes, so I did one set of everything and it was just okay. It's if you're going to do it well. And even if it's not the total volume that you anticipated for that session, you gave the right volume for the intensity that you could give.
Yeah. Yeah. So you mentioned showing up even when you kind of feel like shit, when should someone know that you should take time off of the gym?
Right. And like, I think this is going to be variable to everybody because everyone's adapted to training under different circumstances. But for my clients and what I say for myself is that if you're sick, like really sick, like body chills, fever, anything like kind of from the neck down, like creaky joints, you feel really stiff, that's probably not a training day. And especially if you're infectious to others.
What
like,
if I have stiff joints every day?
you know, your warm-up needs to be better.
It's time for recovery,
Yeah,
sis.
it's time to recover a little bit better. But I think it's worth noting, like, there are some hard no's, and like, one, if you're infectious to others, two, like body chills, fever, like abnormal lethargy where you're like really can't like get up and or you're out of breath. Those are times like definitely stay at home.
Sometimes you might even realize it like after you get to the gym where you're like, ooh, I shouldn't be here. The
And
one
that's okay.
time for me that was prevalent was I was doing a strict press. It was my very first set of the day, and I pushed the bar straight into my chin, and I was like, I'm going home. I am a harm to myself and to everyone around me. So this is not a workout day.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's worth noting about our cycle too. Some women do often feel more affected by their cycle than others, and if you're somebody who is that way, you know, you have to do what's best for you. But if you're someone who notes that their kind of like coordination is a little bit more off, or you're just a little bit more imbalanced, or you trip over things more, like, I would just be cognizant. It doesn't mean you should stay out of the gym.
As someone who does bleed, every person is going to be different in the way that they experience their menstruation. Just so much so as every month is going to be different.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but some months my joints hurt. Some months I'm a moody ass bitch. Some months I have cramps worse than anything I've ever felt. So it really is so situational, and using this auto regulation gives you the tools to adjust your training without always just saying, oh, well, I'm going to be on my period on the 20th, so I need to do Pilates for an entire week. If you want to do Pilates, that's fine. It can be a part of your strength training routine. But
if that feels good in your body, go off.
But what matters is that you're consistent with a regimented strength-based routine and not just using an excuse to fuck off.
Totally. And truthfully, we acknowledge that there's been a huge influx of conversation around train around your period. That's fine. If that works for you, that's fine. It's just not the optimal way to go, or at least we don't think so, and based on the research. So what we do suggest is using this auto-regulation technique for any situation: menstruation, sleep, stress, life events, breakup, whatever. So other techniques that you can use, like say you wake up and you've had like a pretty tough conversation with your partner and you're just like feeling ick, but your body, I mean, there's no reason why your body shouldn't feel good, but your mind's just not there. In that training session, if you're 7 RPE, you walk in at a 4 and you give that 7 RPE, but you're like still not quite hitting the reps, but like you physically could go there. There's a couple techniques that I personally use. I'll typically use some drop sets or even some rest pause sets to still get the same amount of volume that is prescribed for me that day at the weights that I want to use. Because I know that my mind's just feeling a little bit off, but I'm like physically there. So what those are, like a drop set is like you do your 8 to 12 at 100 pounds, and maybe I'll strip off a little bit of weight and do the rest of like if I had to do 15
we'll
reps.
We'll have to do a whole episode of intensifiers or strategies in programming, because that's a whole other rabbit hole, and we got a limited amount of time here.
Yes. Hold on. But the rest pause set just means like if you had to do 10 reps and you're like trying to match your weight and you did like 8 reps and they were still like pretty good and you think you maybe have 2 more in the tank, you just needed a quick little rest for your brain. Then you just rest for like 5 to 10 seconds and do those extra 2 sets.
Yep.
2 reps.
So some of the downsides of auto-regulation is obviously this episode is getting into that 25-minute mark. So you can see it's a little bit steep learning curve. So it might be hard to gauge initially when you first start doing it. It's obviously easier to look at something that's say 70% or 100 pounds on your back squat. Of course, it's easier when you have a prescriptive weight. But So because it has that steep learning curve, it just takes time. You show up week to week, you make little notes for yourself. Additionally, it's also more subjective. So I think we tend to hate nuance. Our brain hates nuance, except for mine. I love nuance. But it's really individual. So what feels like a 7 one day might be different than the next week.
Yeah, and it's tough because a lot of people are like, just tell me what to do and I'll do it. And like, while that works for a bit, you need to step in. You need to step in, and also
you're the one feeling it. I need to know how it feels for you. I have this one client. He will always say, like, I'll ask. I'll say, how many more reps could you have done? He's like, I don't know. How many more do you think I could have done? I was like, I only know so much. Like, I know what I think, but you're the one feeling it.
Right.
And then so if we slap on, say, another 50 pounds on the leg press, then he's not getting the reps that I prescribed. So I'm like, this is why I need your input. Yeah. Because to me, it looks really easy, but I don't know how it feels to you.
I might, for that exact client, I'd be like, oh, you don't know? Okay, well, hop back on. Let's do as many reps as you can at this weight.
That's what I do.
You're going to go to failure now.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? Look, you did 10 reps. So it looks like you were in RP 5, you little sandbagger.
Yes.
But the other thing is that sometimes on this point, some like stressed people and like these very like hard charging CEO types. Like I coach a lot of those people who are like, I don't have time to think about it. I don't have time to figure out how I'm feeling. Just tell me what to do and do it. I'm like,
100%.
That's fine for a little, but you're going to reach a roadblock. And I have had tough conversations with a lot of these hard charging clients where it's like, I don't care if you don't think you have time. You need to make time to see how your body feels, or else you're not going to be training because you're going to get injured.
Just pay attention for like a second.
A little bit of attention. So if you're somebody who's like this, you're like, I want to really maximize my training time, then you better spend time outside of the gym really writing in your notes and making sure that you understand your training vibe each session. And that also limits the amount of time that you have to talk to your coach and tell them how you're feeling. So definitely, if you're a newer trainee or you're like kind of that hard charging person, the more notes you put about your training and how your body feels is only going to better train you to know, like to use that quote unquote muscle, no pun intended, of actually like asking yourself how you feel.
Yep. So the practical takeaways here are start using the RPE scale. Start with your next workout. Say you have back squats or hip thrusts. Start writing down from the start of your warm-up sets. Okay, that felt like a 5. You do your next little jump in weight. That felt like a 7. Okay, we're getting there. We're getting for something. And then if you do all of your sets at that weight, you know next week, all right, this is what I used. I have the option to stay the same based on the next RPE of the next week. Or if you're feeling like extra charged and primed, you know, okay, cool, I can go up. So start using the RPE scale, 1 to 10, and then adjusting based on how you feel, not just what the program says. So, and then I know you want to talk about this, but what if you overshoot?
In rowing, we called this flying and dying. Like if you like really start out hot and you're like, oh shit, I really blew my load there. But what
Girl
happens?
boss, a little too close to the sun.
A little too close. But if this does happen and you get in your session, you're like, oh my, like in my deadlifts, like I just completely taxed out my nervous system. Well, you can scale back your RPE for the rest of the session. Does it mean that you need to leave? No. I mean, if you're tired and like risking injury and like it's a big, like you really overshot, like, yeah, maybe you just want to walk on the treadmill for a little bit and go home. But
and you also note to yourself next week, like, okay, maybe I did 200 pounds on my deadlift and I overshot it, meaning like, okay, that last rep felt like a 10. You write that note to yourself, like, oops, RPE 10. Next week, you know, okay, maybe I'll try 10 pounds, 20 pounds less.
Or you do the same weight again, or you build up to it, and because you've already done that weight before last week, your brain and your nervous system might be more adapted to how that weight feels. So now maybe next week you're not going to fly and die on that weight. So again, like, but if you do overshoot and you feel tapped for the session, just dampen the RPE a little bit for the rest of the session. But if you overshoot and like really like go too hard in the paint, just let your coach know and then adjust for the future weeks.
So to summarize, auto-regulation is about adjusting to how you feel, and it's a great way to keep things flexible and sustainable. And I think it kind of like subverts some of that pressure that we often feel from exercise, which is like, oh, I'm so tired. Like more times than not, I'm going to be tired. Like we're fucking normal functioning adults. I'm always tired. I wake up and I'm fucking tired and I'm excited to go back to bed, but I still have to do this goddamn workout. But you show up and you do it anyway because you've given yourself permission, or your coach has given you permission to listen to your body. Whoa. pivotal. I know.
Listen to your body and actually make the training session fun.
Yes.
Right? When I wake up grumpy and tired, I'm either putting into the universe that this is going to be a shitty, not fun session, or I'm open to the idea that I can really change it around.
Yeah.
And so autoregulation encourages you to attune to and really check into how your body feels each day, but giving you an opportunity to respect your body and actually an opportunity to like change your day around with training.
Yep. You will never regret a workout. You'll probably regret skipping the workout.
Yep.
But you will never regret the workout.
You'll never regret showing up at the very minimum. If you go to the gym and you just foam roll around and you're like,
that's all I got today.
That's all I got today. That's okay because
Cool.
you got there, and then tomorrow when you are going to go and do your training session, it's not going to feel as hard. It's not going to be like this 3 days of no training and now I got to hit it hard feeling.
Right. Yep. So if you're listening to this and you resonated with any of it, we encourage you to try out the RPE scale so you can train smarter, not harder. And next week,
we've got a fun little episode about supplements.
ooh,
Yeah, we're going to talk about supplements.
finally, let's do it.
Let's do it.
So we will see you in the next episode. And in the meantime, follow us on Instagram at Overt Thinking Podcast, at Brianna Lamb, and at Kelsey Michelle. And we will see you in the next episode.
And if you comment on our Spotify, we would love that because that's a great place for you and other listeners to kind of share some ideas and some of the big takeaways in this episode so we can keep giving you more free, awesome content.
Smooches.